Good morning, folks. I know I said Thursday that I was going to make a video today, but I decided to make one because I think it's something that needs to be addressed. You know, every day that we wake up, we are faced with things that appear very scary to us. And fear of anything can be crippling. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm cutting the grass with an electric corded mower. And one of my greatest fears is running over the cord. I don't let that stop me. Because I need to cut the grass, right? Fear of not being able to pay a bill because you put $5 in savings is irrational. I want you to think about this. If you're very poor, which I think a lot of us are, $5 out of one paycheck is not going to break you. I understand if you're on government assistance, you're scared to do anything which might affect that government assistance. But you need to think about this also. As long as you are on the government dime, you are their slave. And I use that word specifically for a reason. Because you have to follow their rules. You cannot do anything which will improve your standing in society because you're scared of losing that little bit that just barely gives you enough to get by. And sometimes it's not even enough to do that. That fear of pursuing your dreams, whether it be to be an artist, whether it be to drive a big truck, whether it be to be a police officer, a fireman, a cashier, that fear of not being able to do it is something that you have to face and do every day if you pursue that dream. So I'm going to give you a little backstory. At one time, I was living in a 1961 mobile home that my grandmother, when she passed away, gave to my dad. And my dad, when him and my stepmom moved down here to North Carolina, gave to me to live in. Now, at the time, I was living with two children and staying with my older brother. And then I got an apartment, and then we got kicked out of the apartment. And we were staying off and on. We'd stay over here at one friend's house. We'd move over. We'd stay, one or two nights in a car. It just, it was a blessing to me to get the mobile home. But let's be clear, that mobile home was in a bad part of town. And it wasn't really safe. And I ended up, because of my two children, I ended up getting what's called WIC, which is Woman, Infant, Child, and food stamps and welfare. And I literally was going to work hard labor with a labor company, just doing whatever I could do to get $5 here, $5 there. At the time that this was occurring, the minimum wage was at $4.75, and that's pretty much what I was making, was $4.75. And I had to face some fears while doing that work. One of those fears was I was always scared that stuff would fall on me, especially when we were working construction sites. I was always scared of someone, uh, you know, losing it and ended up running over people with the forklifts, right? When we were working in factories. Um, and that fear for a time stopped me from trying to better myself because I was scared of losing that small little bit that I was receiving from the government. Now, when I went to drive a tractor trailer, I had to make some very hard decisions. And one of those decisions were where would my children stay while I was in training, and would I lose my children because of going to this training? That was a really big fear. And unfortunately, that fear came true about 8 months later. I did lose both my children for a time. Um, would I have changed anything? No. Because honestly, just getting into a big truck and sitting up in the seat was a big fear for me because I was scared of heights. And if you've ever been in a big truck, that first time you get up in that seat, it's like you're sitting on top of a mountain looking out. And it scared the bejesus out of me. It didn't stop me. Because in my mind, I knew that I needed to do this in order to improve my children's lives. And so I proceeded to continue with my dream, which was to provide a safe home for my children and myself. It was very hard that first year because, like I said, about 8 months after I started driving a big truck, I did lose both of my children. Not through the court system, but in a very strange fashion. My son was supposed to stay with my mom and dad, and because he was such a handful, and he was a handful, they ended up, because I gave them power of attorney, they ended up sending him to live with my older brother out in Washington State. Now, I live here, North Carolina, Virginia line. For me to go visit him was extremely difficult. Now, my daughter, at the time that I went to truck driving school, was about 6 months old. She was supposed to stay with her dad. I came off the road. I visited her the month before. Every month I would run all the way down to South Carolina and visit her and spend a day or two out of my 3 days off a month. I would try and spend that with her. And I came off the road for my 3 days off. I went down there to South Carolina where she was supposedly staying with her dad, and ended up that they weren't there. For 2 weeks, I'm calling around every family member I know trying to figure out, because I had no contact with her dad. I couldn't find him. I didn't know what had happened, right? That was probably the worst 2 weeks of my life. And at the end of those 2 weeks, I found out that she went to his sister, and that because they had had no contact with me in over 30 days, the court awarded her sole custody of my child. Again, it was a situation where I did not have much chance to have time with her because I was over the road. All of this that I went through scared the bejesus out of me, because I thought for sure I lost my kids. I thought for sure that, I'm just going to put it blunt, that I was cursed. And it hurt very deeply. That fear almost made me lose my CDL. I say this because with everything that goes on in your life, there are times when you are faced with things that seem insurmountable. Now, here we are, 21 years later, and I have a very good relationship with both of my children. That was not easy to develop. But you do things that you fear because you know the end result will be better than the fear. Now, some people would say, well, that would have really put me in a very depressive state. I would not have recovered from that, etc., etc. You can't let your failures define you. If all you can do every morning is put your shoes on and tie them, that's a success. I want you to hear that clearly. Sometimes our biggest failures and our biggest fears are what are holding us back from continuing on our dreams. Sometimes our dreams are too big and we have to take our dreams down a notch. I'm sitting here at my house that I really, really never thought I would ever be able to have. And I feared big time when I got into trucking. I feared big time being homeless again. I feared that. I feared it so bad. It's not even funny. And I literally lived in the truck for 2 or 3 years because I couldn't afford a place. I was paying child support. I could not afford a place. My biggest thing to tell you is don't let your fears of a possible outcome stop you from pursuing your dreams. Don't let your failures stop you from continuing on that dream. You have one life. This is your life. It's not mine. It's yours. And you're going to have ups and downs through your life. And they're going to seem insurmountable. And if you let fear cripple you, it'll end up killing you. So, don't let the fear of saving money, of putting food back, of putting water back, don't let the fear of what people think of you stop you from doing what you know is right to do. Now, obviously, there are some fears that are valid. Like, well, I'll just go there, okay? I went hunting, and I'm terrified of bears. And I'm sitting up in a deer stand, and a bear walks through. Don't you know I had to go pee right quick? Do you think I jumped down and ran away? No. I continued to sit up there in that deer stand, scared to get down, but at the same time, watching that bear. And don't you know, 2 hours later, I got my first deer. That's something that you don't hear people talk about, right? That's a valid fear, to be scared of bears, because bears can eat you, right? It is a valid fear. It you have to face your fears. You have a fear that you're going to break something by working on a lawnmower. That's going to stop you from fixing it. So go work on it. It's just a lawnmower. If it breaks, okay. Then you go take it to the mechanic or whatever. You know, you have a fear that you're going to really mess something up if you try something. Yeah, you might. You might not. I was scared that I couldn't build this. Yet there it is. 4 years later, it's still standing. So, you can't let, and I mean, it's not perfect. You can see, it's not perfect. But it's functional. And I learned a lot building that. Because I never built anything in my life. So, don't let your fear stop you, folks. I just thought I'd say that because I've heard a lot this week about people who are scared of this eclipse, and understandably there's a lot of religious connotations to it. Where's your faith? Where's your faith? Because if it's true that this is the end times, well, why are you in fear? Do you know, I think this is a really valid subject because in the Bible, God tells us not to fear 365 times. That's one time for every day. So don't fear trying something new. Don't fear leaving an abusive partner because of what you think might happen in the future or how this might financially affect you. The fears are off the chain, right? If a person can hold you in fear, they have control of you. I'll leave it at that. So this is my video today because I heard some interesting comments online, and people are scared of World War III. People are scared of, nuclear holocaust. People are scared of, the food running out. People are scared of this eclipse not being just an eclipse. People are scared of the economy collapsing. People are scared of losing their jobs. Let me tell you something. I've lost jobs in the past, and it really hurt. Don't get me wrong. It really hurt. But it's not the end of the world, right? There's always another job out there. It might not be what you want to do, but, sometimes you do what you got to do to get by to the next day. Uh, don't live in fear. If you live in fear, you'll end up in a little corner somewhere, drowning in self pity and scared to move. And when that happens, you lose the joy of life. So I hope this helps somebody, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from when I say I have faced many fears in my life, and I don't let it stop me. Um, I don't really consider myself a courageous person. I just consider myself to know that the fears will come, you know, and I will face them. And sometimes facing them is very difficult, but we do what we got to do. So I want you all to enjoy the nice sunny day, even though it's a little chilly here. And don't let fear stop you. Bicycle.